Today, we'll bring you another installment from this season's ultimate riding tour of the Catskill Mountains.
It's been a wonderful ride up here. It just doesn't get dull out here.
As Norm and I cut north through the middle of New York State, we discover an amazing fort dating back to the American Revolutionary War. And speaking of ultimate rides, later on in the show, we'll step into the time capsule as we take a look at a very desirable vintage 60s desert racer.
This bike was featured in the movie The Great Escape. Steve McQueen made it very famous.
Then we'll head out to the west coast, to the beautiful town of Duncan, BC on Vancouver Island, to catch up with rookie adventure rider Matt Fletcher as he gets an invaluable lesson in uphill U-turns.
You don't want to hurry. If it takes you all day, it doesn't matter. It's better than falling over or breaking yourself or your bike.
Plus, over in our contest corner, Kylie will give us another valuable clue in our scooter contest giveaway. All this and more as TSN presents Motorcycle Experience. Hello and welcome to Motorcycle Experience, the voice of motorcyclists everywhere. I'm Dave Hatch, and this week we're kicking off our show from West City Power Sports in Belleville, Ontario. As for our road test feature this week, we're going to sample MV Agusta's Totally Naked, Totally Outrageous 1090 Brutale RR. Now, you may recall that last season we sampled the Brutale 1090R. And from a distance, you may find yourself saying, what's the diff besides the extra R painted on the bodywork? Well, once you stop drooling over the RR's hand-welded frame, you start to notice the subtle differences between the RR and its R-rated sibling. For instance, everything is slightly more in the RR land. Like Nigel Huffnell's Marshall amp, all the dials go up to 11. The radial-mounted monoblock Brembo brakes, the 10-spoke forged aluminum wheels, the tranny slipper clutch, and so too all the extreme suspension bits, more adjustment options, including a steering damper. Internally, higher lift cams, shorter intake runs, and a revised engine map pushes the power band skyward, with the RR's sound following suit. This is the Hulk of naked bikes. But you don't have to take my word for it. Here's longtime viewer Eric Heidendahl with his full-on impression. Eric, not since the days of way back when we first tested a Bimota has any motorcycle garnered so many comments and discussion. What was your first impression when you saw this bike?
My first impression was that it was all motor with a couple of wheels stuck on it. So obviously they went after the naked bike thing, but it just looks so chunky because it's all motor.
Yeah, but it's not that big.
It isn't that big, and it's not that heavy. It's just over 400 pounds.
Yeah. Now you said it's all motor, and what a motor.
Oh, what a motor. It is stunning. That's the only way to put it, I think. What do the Italians say? Molto bene.
Right. How would you describe this engine other than snarly and nasty? Like, what's it like when you fire it up?
Well, I didn't find it really too snarly and nasty, although it has a really nice exhaust note to it, but it has so much torque and so much horsepower that gears are kind of irrelevant. It doesn't matter what gear you're in, if you crank the throttle, you're going.
Right.
Which is it's a wonderful thing. Now, there is a bit of throttle lag, but beyond that, it's a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful thing. There's no displacement or replacement for displacement. That's right.
Exactly.
What's the riding experience like? Does it feel smooth, lumpy? Just what is the elemental feeling?
I'd say it's firm. The ride is firm, and intentionally so, but it handles very, very well. So it gives you lots of confidence. If you're going into a corner, you just feel like you can throw it over and perhaps even scrape the pegs if you wanted to.
So what about when you crack the throttle? I mean, what is that experience like when you've got that much horsepower and torque?
Well, you really are just hanging on for dear life.
Really?
Yeah. And They have the gearbox is such a short throw that you can change gears quickly.
Yeah.
Although it's hard to get an exceptionally smooth shift out of it because there's a bit of throttle lag in the fly-by-wire.
Right.
But otherwise, it's quite an experience.
We know this thing hauls. What about hauling it down from speed? What did you think of those brakes?
Well, that's the other really nice part of it is the brakes are outstanding. Double discs in the front and single in the back with multiple pistons. It just stops in a hurry.
Now, in keeping with this motorcycle, we got a big beefy fork up front and we've got a nice monoshock out back. How did you just find the handling itself? We went over some very bumpy roads today.
We did, and it was firm, but it handled the bumps very well.
Yeah.
And again, inspired great confidence that I could do just about anything with it.
One of the first things you noticed about that fork was this adjustable rake.
Right. So we didn't get a chance to adjust that, but I assumed that if you rake it out a bit, it'd be more comfortable on a cruising effort.
And then you can shorten it back in for the track.
Right. But honestly, I don't think you're going to be doing a lot of cruising on this motorcycle. This will inspire you to find ways to go to the drugstore for something, because it really is the ultimate cafe racer, isn't it?
It certainly is a lot of fun. What did you think of the riding position? Because the pegs are fairly close to that saddle and you do have long legs.
Yep.
The reach to the bar is a bit of a reach. So what was the riding position like?
Well, the riding position is very upright, and actually I didn't have a problem with it. I really liked that position. However, as you said, and I tend to be longer in the torso than I am in the legs. So the one big problem I had was I couldn't see a thing out of the mirrors, and there was no way to adjust them up.
Right.
So they became just about useless.
What do you think of the fit and finish of the bike?
Oh, the fit and finish is also superb. It's that glorious Italian red, and it's cap nut screws everywhere. It's beautifully done, really is nicely put together.
So Eric, you were kind of hanging out there in the breeze, but you do have this little information pod. How did you find that as far as being able to read everything and access the information you needed?
It was quite readable. There isn't a lot of information there to be had. Mostly you're looking for the speed that you're going at and reading the tach so you know when to shift. So it's usable, but it's not overwhelming. Everything is where I expected it to be. There's a nice adjustment for the headlight as well, which is that's a nice feature. If you were to drop the saddle height a little bit, for instance, you could adjust the headlamp to accommodate.
What's the one lasting impression that will continue to put a smile on your face for the remainder of the weekend?
Horsepower.
Yeah.
It just has gobs of horsepower and torque in every gear, which is a wonderful thing.
Who will appreciate owning a bike like this? Who would you recommend this to?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say somebody that has some experience on the track perhaps, and they want a high performance motorcycle, and they're not looking to do a lot of touring, but they really want to carve some corners. And perhaps they know a little bit about Agostini.
That helps.
And his 15 championships in a row.
Helps. Now, what kind of motorcycle do you own right now?
I have a Kawasaki KZ750, an L4, which is a 1984 motorcycle.
And back in 1984, that would probably be a pretty powerful naked bike.
It was, yeah.
So could this perhaps replace what you have in the garage right now?
It certainly could if I had the money to buy one of these.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, David. It's been a great experience.
You did a good job. Thanks.
Cheers.
Next, three-time Dakar competitor Don Hatton shows us how to get out of a jam when stalled halfway up a hill. We'll also step back into time to examine one of the most famous set of wheels ever to jump a prison camp fence. And Kylie will check in with another key feature in our scooter contest giveaway. Stay with us. Portions of Motorcycle Experience are brought to you in part by Honda Canada, BMW Motorrad, and Triumph Motorcycle. Closed captioning of Motorcycle Experience is brought to you by Motovan. Welcome back as TSM presents The Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and it's time now to catch up with our rookie road rider, Matt Fletcher. This week he's out west learning what to do when you're riding your adventure bike uphill and suddenly you stall.
Oh, the great master stalls the bike. What happened there?
So this is what I'm going to demonstrate to you here, Matt, is let's say you're out in the mountains and you've attempted a hill that's bigger than your eyes, which is probably about half this size, and so you can't make it. And the problem is that at that point, your girlfriend's not around to help you, so you really need to get yourself out of this mess.
Yeah.
So you can't start from here because all the bike's going to do is sit here spinning.
Right.
It's a very heavy bike. So we want to get you turned around and get you going back down the hill so you can try it again.
Okay.
So the best way to do this is to leave the bike in gear as it is now.
Right.
Use the clutch to roll the bike back and control your speed with the clutch, not necessarily the brake.
Okay.
So what we're going to try to do is get the bike to go around like this. And once we get it in a position where we can wiggle the handlebars back and forth till we get the bike pointed down, and then we'll get back on it and we'll ride it down the hill.
All right.
So here we go.
All right.
So first off, we're going to get off the bike.
Yep.
So you see how much easier it is to get off the bike on this side.
Yep.
Now, we're going to try and bring it down with the clutch. So you can see I'm using the clutch now.
Yeah.
And we're using a little brake to try and slow it down. This is fairly slippery hill.
Yeah.
So very much like what you'd run into in the desert. And we're bringing it around. So we're clutching it. You see how I'm clutching it here? And you don't want to hurry. If it takes you all day, it doesn't matter. It's better than falling over or breaking yourself or your bike.
Yeah.
So now we're parallel to the hill.
Yep.
So I want to go down there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rock the bike back and forth.
Oh,
finger on the front brake. I got the finger on the front brake to control it. I'm rocking the bike around and it will come around.
Yep. Look at that.
If I keep doing this, it will keep coming around. So now I'm at an angle where I'm fairly comfortable about going down the hill.
Yep.
So you have two options at this point. And if this were a really steep hill, you would have one option. That would be just to coast it.
Yeah.
But you have two options. I'm going to get on the bike because I feel comfortable. I'm resting my hand on the front brake.
Okay.
Put my foot on the brake. And now I could start it and ride it down.
Yep.
But instead, I'm going to coast it down and fire it up when I get to the bottom and I get control of it. So clutch in, rolling it down, and then firing it up. So there we go. And that's how you recover from a hill. And then we do it again. Only this time, we're going to make the hill.
That looks great, Don. Thanks so much.
Now that's one invaluable lesson, Don. Now, there's still plenty more experience ahead. Next, after soaking up the site of Woodstock 69, Norm and I stumble across more amazing New York State living history. While riding through Rome, we're suddenly transported back to 1776. Stay with us. Welcome back as TSN presents Motorcycle Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and the guys here at West City Power Sports in Belleville have put me to work. As usual, it's time now for this week's installment of The Ultimate Ride. Norm and I are now heading north back to the Canadian border through New York State, and we're grabbing a bite of lunch in Rome. Last fall, Norm and I rode east out of Toronto, looking to spend a couple of days exploring the Catskill Mountains. Our ultimate destination was the tiny town of Bethel, New York, the site of the famous Woodstock concert back in 1969. Today, midway through day 3 in our journey, we're cutting north through the middle of the state, and we're making tracks for the town of Rome. Why Rome? Well, the residents have called Rome the city of American history for decades, and we wanted to find out why. Well, Norm, it's midday on day 3 of our tour, and I guess all roads do lead to Rome, especially 26, because here we are in Rome, New York.
Yeah, and it's been a wonderful ride up here today on that Highway 26. And obviously, going through the valley and all those beautiful farm areas that we went through, and the small towns, and the nice road, it just doesn't get dull out here.
Yeah, we were riding that whole time through Madison County, and boy, no disrespect to my friends and family in Prince Edward County, but Madison County was beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when we started out this morning, it was really cold. We started out at 0. And here we are midday, and we hit 17, and it looks like it's still getting warmer. So just a glorious, glorious fall ride.
Absolutely. And we've had some fun on this 26 as well, heading up here. We did that little NASCAR lap through Vernon Center. We did a few laps at the city square there with all the leaves on the ground. That was kind of fun. And then went back where I think some of your relatives might have been at some point in time, by Hatch Lake.
Yeah, what was that about?
I think I saw you punch in the air as we were driving through there.
Yeah, said hello to everybody. Yeah, very cool. And then eventually we punched out here in Rome. Again, we didn't really know we were going to be here, and look what we find. It seems like every time we get out on a trip like this, we find a fort.
And that's the cool thing about doing a ride like what we're doing today is, you have no plans, you just pick some roads on the map and you end up in cities, and all of a sudden you come across these amazing historical sites, and this is quite historical.
The National Monument. This is Fort Stanwix behind us. We didn't even know this was here, didn't know we were coming. If we had, I'm sure we would have carved out a couple of hours to tour the fort, because they've really done a nice job preserving it. It's an important fort too. I just picked up the brochure while we were waiting. 1758, it was constructed by the British, and they used this fort to capture forts in Kingston, Oswego, Niagara, St. Lawrence River, Montreal from the French. So this must have been pretty key.
And obviously all the people they captured, as we were riding in, we saw where they are at that immense Mohawk Correctional Facility, which was also kind of a surprise to see that out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that was big. So a nice surprise. I think we'll be back. Definitely we'll have to come back and check out the fort. What's the plan for later this afternoon?
Well, keep heading up 26. Watertown is the ultimate destination at the end of the day, so up 26. And if we get some time, maybe we can punch a little bit east to Adirondack Park. Maybe get to the edge of Adirondack Park, because that's also a beautiful area, and we haven't even touched on that, so that might be another trip.
Well, we started our day in Binghamton, and 26 was the key. The target is Watertown, and so far, it's been another ultimate ride.
Yes, sir.
Let's keep going.
Now let's turn our attention to this week's contest giveaway. How would you like to win the keys to your very own journal? Well, here's Kylie to tell you how.
Thanks, Dave. Because we've been getting a lot of interest in scooters from viewers all across Canada, we thought we'd hold a contest where you could win my cool new Honda Giorno scooter. Here's how the contest is going to work. Each week, we're going to answer some viewer mail about scooters, and you need to remember the subject. So this week, we have an email from Andrea Johnston from Kingston, Ontario. She wants to know if a scooter is easy to maneuver out on the road and is a little worried about getting one into a parking space. Okay, so good question. This scooter is pretty typical of all new scooters nowadays. If I were to take off all of its bodywork, you see that the gas tank is actually under the seat and the engine is down low here by my feet. That means that the scooter's C/G, center of gravity, is really low. That makes the scooter really easy to handle in traffic and in the parking lot. Piece of cake. Excellent, so that's this week's contest key feature. Scooters are stable and have a low center of gravity. Now let's get right down to the nuts and bolts. How to enter the Keys to Kylies scooter contest. All you have to do is surf the Motorcycle Experience website and click on the Kylies Keys link. Provide us with 3 key features or reasons for owning a scooter. Remember, every week I'm going to be giving you a key feature and you only need 3. So send those in and you'll be instantly entered into the draw to win the keys to my scooter, a brand new 2013 Honda Giorno. Wicked. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be drawing to see who wins the keys to a brand new scooter on our last episode of the season. So good luck everyone, and I'll see you next week.
Okay then, we've only got a couple of weeks to go before we draw our winner. So you better visit motorcycleexperience.ca and get your entry in right away. Next, we'll head down to the amazing Barber Museum in Birmingham, Alabama to take an up-close and personal look at a rare 60s motorcycle that jumped off the silver screen. Stay with us. Portions of Motorcycle Experience are brought to you in part by Honda Canada, BMW Motorrad, and Triumph Motorcycle. Welcome back as TSN presents The Experience. I'm Dave Hatch, and we'll wrap up our show now by taking a closer look at a very rare 1967 Triumph TR6R. This 650cc single-carb motorcycle was built by Triumph specifically for the US market and the extremely popular at the time California desert racing scene. Check out the movie On Any Sunday and you'll see what I mean. Anyway, in the late 60s, this was the off-road bike of choice. And what throws a little spice into the mix is the story of how actor Steve McQueen, who was a huge desert racer enthusiast, and his stunt double friend Bud Eakins, well, they used this motorcycle in the famous barbed wire fence jump at the finale to the movie The Great Escape. Barber Museum technical consultant Brian Slark picks up the story in this week's Triumph Time Capsule.
Originally, the Triumph had a 500, a dual sport, we call now a dual sport machine, the TR5, which is a 500cc. So then went to the TR6, which is a 650, and it's a single carburetor version of the Bonneville. The single carburetor gives very, very smooth running at very low throttle openings, where say you're running off-road and you've got to pick your way through rocks or off-road terrain. The single carburetor is a lot easier to get a large air cleaner for off-road use, and even if you're running into traffic at slow RPM, slow speed, it's very, very flexible motor. Most people in the 60s, most people raced in the desert on a 650 Triumph. They were the bike to beat. Before the two-strokes arrived on the scene, the Husqvarnas, the Triumph TR6 was the king of the desert. And the TR6s were heavily modified and very, very durable, fast and reliable motorcycle. This bike was featured in the movie The Great Escape. Steve McQueen made it very famous, and the TR6 has just been the workhorse of the Triumph 650 machines. They produce a lot of TR6s, and this one is 1967. Every year they had a different color, a two-tone. Every year they came out, everybody was always waiting for the colors, a new color to come out. I raced one of these in the desert, a TR6, back in the 60s. It was a big heavy bike, it was a handful to hang on to, but if you wanted to be successful, you had to ride a Triumph TR6.
Well, that's it for this week's program, folks. We're all out of time. Next week, we'll be sampling Yamaha's Open Class YZF R1. So till then, keep your feet on the pegs and your right hand cranked. Bye for now. Is it break time?